Hello and welcome back. This is a bit of a content topic rather than weapons, which is what I normally try and stick to. However, I have come across quite a few people that struggle with Eidolons, as well as people that want to know how to do them better and quicker. Now obviously there are a lot of great guides on how to screw over an Eidolon. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to dip my little toe into this little puddle as well. And by no means am I going to start off by saying that this is the best guide or the best how-to. It's just another variant in a plethora of situations in which Eidolons can get screwed over. Now I also want to point out that at the point of this recording, I do not have the best amp whatsoever, so I very rarely actually go into stupid, boring, crappy, pointless operator mode to do anything, because it does nothing apart from hurt the shield of an Eidolon. That's another story. Basically, the basic composition of a team that I am wanting to get for when I do Eidolons is buff Rhino, preferably with at least a 90% or more buff. A Chroma, which is what I'm playing here, with a Euphona Prime. And a Trinity to manage the lures. Now, there are two catches to this. At least the Trinity or the Rhino has to have a decent amp to whittle down that shield. You can see here at the moment I've not even bothered to go into my operator because they're completely shit. Anyway, that's another video altogether. So yeah, anyway, I would like a Rhino with at least 90% buff on its raw, preferably with a decent amp. A Trinity with a blessed build, preferably to help manage the lures, again with a decent-ish amp. The person playing as the Chroma doesn't necessarily need this. They are literally just waiting out for this moment to screw over the Eidolon. Now admittedly I do a piss poor job through quite a lot of this, although it only does really take about 4 direct hits, even with a semi buff. The first 2 tend to be a little bit more difficult because the Eidolon doesn't tend to do that much damage to you to help increase your buff, so you're relying on self damage, which becomes complicated because the moment that shield disappears you get a massive influx in armor. The more armor you have, the less damage you do to your health bar to increase your damage buff. I'm sure you guys know how Chroma actually works. Now on that note, I will be putting a video link to both my Chroma build as well as my Euphona Prime build in the link. And again, in this video at the moment, this is just player testing. This isn't optimized at all. We don't even have a Rhino in this particular run, so the actual overall effect isn't really as desired. And the way I've found the best results really is, as the shield goes down, the Rhino does roar. After the roar effect kicks in, pretty much instantly, you activate Vex Armor on the Chroma does the self-harm. Once the Chroma is ready, you then notify the Rhino to roar again. Luckily at this point we are on Discord, or not, just use the in-game chat to buff again, and that extra buff should then hopefully start to actually apply to your overall direct damage, so you can hit quite a lot harder. The hardest to date at the moment that I have hit an Eidolon for is about 5.8 million in just one shot, which is quite impressive. On average, it normally hits for about 1.8, which still one shots each individual part. However, I do also tend to hit below at around 7 to 10,000, which is a bit annoying. You can see here I'm hitting for 6,000, although that one only took 3 shots to get rid of, so that is actually still pretty impressive. Now there are ways in which you can just completely one-shot it, so you can actually just 5 shots and that's just the Eidolon over and done with. But it all depends on your buff rate and how much damage you can deal. Now when it comes to the self-damage part of it, you do need to be quite careful, because the moment you get your first buff, particularly with the builds I am using, the moment you get your first buff from the self-damage, the second hit that you do against yourself will just flat out kill you, because fuck you. Don't know why, it just does so much damage, it completely negates all that armor you put into it, and it just screws you over complete. It's really annoying, which is another reason for the Blessed Trin. After I did my first hit, as you just saw, I've spoken to the Trin through Discord and said, could you please bless to get 1, the damage mitigation, 2, the heal, which would be nice so I can keep hitting myself to get a larger and larger damage buff going up to the max, which on this build I have is 374%. And adding in the Euphona Prime that I have and the build that I have on that, well, you saw the end result. It was pretty much a one shot on that particular part, which is bloody useful. Now I haven't mentioned the actual Warframe, and that is because we are still playtesting this and trying to optimize it to a point of where we can literally just breeze through every Eidolon we can. Now we have started to think about Octavia, purely because 1, she gives a bit of a damage buff, 2, she is able to knock the Vombelisks into their spectral form so that they won't be able to replenish shields, because from what we've noticed they can't replenish shields while in spectral form, which is a useful thing. And just to point out, you may have noticed that I actually didn't really go into my operator form until I required energy. Didn't actually do any laser beam damage, but I've still done 60% plus of the total damage on just that run, which just shows how much damage this composition is actually putting out. Now this is the setup I've got: Chroma, Ignis Wraith, Euphona Prime and Glaive Prime. This is the brief overlook at my Chroma build. Again, the link to the build video and the full description of how it works will be in the description, as with the rest of them, such as the Euphona Prime. So this again is my Euphona Prime build. Like I said, link in the description. I do have 2 builds for this, one that I use for casual gameplay, and this one is purely for Eidolon killing, which is why it's called Eidolon Killer. And just showing here my Riven. Again, this is not optimized. To get it optimized, I do need to re-roll it a few more times. I want crit damage and crit chance. What I've got there is semi-okay. Now the last build is for Glaive Prime. This is purely based on trying to hurt myself. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope this has helped, and I'll see you pretty soon. Ta-ra!